met us, you've seen it all.
1 month after the terrorist attacks of 9/11, the United States launched combat operations against Afghanistan. The war on terror had begun. In the decade that followed, as the war also engulfed Iraq, America's all-volunteer military was badly strained. Older men and women served, more parents were deployed, multiple tours became common. More than 6,000 American lives have been lost in the war on terror. More than 40,000 have been wounded. Hundreds of thousands have come home with psychological damage. Veterans have returned to a civilian world that seems to have lost interest. During the last decade, only a tiny fraction of Americans have gone to war. The war on terror has cost nearly $4 trillion, but only now are we realizing the true price. It's a price America will be paying for decades.
Yo, look at this.
What the going on? You're doing?
You better run.
It seemed like we were going forever. It was like being in a parade, and you were the center of the parade, and there was balloons and banners, and like the parade was for you. Who are you gonna hug first? Who are you gonna kiss first? Who are you gonna see first? You know, my mother, my sisters, my brothers, my brother-in-law. Just couldn't stop smiling. It was like so much energy, so much good positive energy, and we haven't seen it for 13 months, and everybody was just so happy, and there wasn't a dry face in the place, and a lot of us were crying, and
He's back safe, Jacob. He's back safe.
it's wonderful. If I could go back to that homecoming, knowing what I know now, honestly, I wouldn't want to get off the plane. Because going through all this, I hurt a lot of people. I hurt a lot of people.
John DiRaimo, a Rhode Island native and National Guardsman, was 42 when he first deployed. It was 2003, the year America invaded Iraq. He was a father. He was engaged to be married.
Did you watch him kill her? Help hold her down?
War movies I don't usually watch.
Anything to Mandy?
They could be triggers, so I don't bother watching them.
Prophet?
You know?
You can't understand.
Any of these shows, if there's someone doing a war story, I change it. Because sometimes it triggers me. So now I know the stuff that triggers me. I'm learning that. I never thought that all this would come back to haunt me.
Before John left for Iraq, John was fun-loving, low-key, easy, sweet, kind.
Well, you just want I'll take care of that.
Through the first two deployments, I didn't really see big changes in his personality. When he returned home from the last deployment, which was Iraq, he was completely different. We would go weeks with no sleep because for the short time that he did sleep, he would wake up with night terrors.
How you doing? Man.
There was a short period of time when he returned home that, we slept with a loaded gun under the bed. There were times in the middle of the night that I would find him pacing the floors here, And I would ask him what's wrong, and he would say to me things like, I need to make sure that you're protected.
I was up for days, and I couldn't take the nightmares anymore. They were killing me. I just wanted it all to stop, and it wasn't stopping. So, I wasn't answering my phone or anything for a couple of days. So she came over in the morning, she had the key, and I was sitting there, medication on one side, and I had my gun on the other. So she came over, and we talked. She said I was white as a ghost, and I think it's time for you to check in to the hospital. I just didn't know what else to do.
One in the pocket. Mom.
I felt I had nowhere to go. I just thought I was all by myself. And that's the feeling you get. I'm having nightmares, nobody understands. But I realize now, and I realize after Sue walked in, there is places to turn to. There is help out there. But you gotta be willing to ask for it.
Monday, good for you.
Oh, believe me, I have it up twice.
9 o'clock or?
Let me grab my book. The drop-in case management class is an opportunity for returning veterans to come together, share with other veterans, gain peer support from other veterans, recognize that typically what they're experiencing is not unique to them only, that there are other veterans who have been in similar situations, have experienced similar current situations.
Hey, come on up.
You're the next contestant on What the Hell's Wrong with You?
My role is really to facilitate in there. If someone starts and shares something, and then everyone else seems to kind of domino off of that. So if someone shares a situation that they were angry, often others are going to share in that same situation.
And the ones that try and instigate you to see what you're going to do and how you're going to do it and how far you're going to go. And I know my personal thing is if I get to that little ledge, it's like boom.
And then that gives me an opportunity to offer education on anger management. So if they all come in and they're talking about relationships, it gives me an opportunity to offer education around relationships. What are some of the services available? What are some of the things they can do?
Anyway, I really hate myself for it, and
Sorry, brother, we're here.
and I shouldn't, but I do, and you know, my wife doesn't deserve it, and I'm sick and tired of it. And that's it for me. I'm done.
There's a lot of different symptoms involved in post-traumatic stress disorder, but that's not to say everyone's going to experience all of them. You're never going to forget, and it's always going to be a part of who you are today. But it's moving past and being able to start the healing process.
All I want to do is bury it. I feel like all the shit I've been through and everybody else, so we're all in the same boat. Well, all the time I was over there, I didn't cry once, I didn't break down, I was a sergeant, I was in charge of 7 other guys. Why the hell can't I figure out shit here? How come I can't handle it here? You hear people squawking and crying about the stupidest, piddly shit, and the stuff we went through is horrendous, and people around here couldn't even deal with it, but yet we dealt with it. But we come home and we can't handle the easiest things. There's guys I know that are friends of mine they're probably worse than me, and they're not going for help because they don't want to be ostracized.
Since we've opened the post-deployment clinic, you know, we've had 800-900 visits to that clinic.
We're going.
But there are still a lot of veterans out there who haven't come in and may be suffering. And suffering alone is never good. It's not gonna fix it. It's not gonna help it. They're not gonna start to heal.
We wake up in the morning and we were tense, and they called our place we were sleeping Mortar Alley. So I thought they were joking, but they weren't. It was called Mortar Alley because that's where, when the mortars usually came in, that's where they were hitting. And showers have been blown up, mortars here, tents have been hit, and they fortify them with sand in these metal cages and stuff, but they still put the friggin' tents there. That's when your realization hits, where this could be my first day or this could be my last day.
DiRaimo came under enemy fire in Iraq. He fired lethal rounds on insurgents. He did his job. He saw fellow soldiers die. He kept going. Back home, he began to fall apart.
I try to keep it inside. Sometimes it's tough. And I wish I could keep it inside. I wasn't going to church when I first came home. I thought I couldn't get communion anymore. When I didn't have a problem doing my duty to protect my soldiers and myself. I thought in the church's eyes I did something wrong. In my own conscience and everything, I know I didn't. It's my baby.
I remember him coming down the escalator from the one of the times when he came home. He came down from the escalator from the airport, and it was just wow. You know, Daddy was home and he was safe. And how's the decorating coming?
Oh, I still didn't put up the pictures yet.
He was much more vulnerable when he got back, and you were able to see more of a side of him that I've never seen before, nor had I known existed. Because again, he was only my dad. Now I saw a man who served his country and how that affects you.
My family and friends were back here worrying and not knowing if I got killed today or this and that because they didn't hear any stories and stuff. Yeah, who's better than you?
Oh, nice little ambiance.
Ambiance. And I didn't really give a shit about them because it was more about me. But see, that's not the way it is. You got to start thinking about them because I'm the one who volunteered. They didn't volunteer me. I volunteered me.
I can't imagine what he went through, you know, and I can't imagine someone actually wanting to do that for their country and to do it for me and to do it for everyone. And I know I certainly couldn't make that sacrifice.
Really?
It's humbled me significantly.
I think I'm big enough now. Alright?
Mhm.
Call me when you get home or text me.
Okay.
Alright?
Mhm.
I love you.
Love you too.
Careful.
You too.
I will.
Bye.
Bye-bye. I wish I could forget it. Or not so much forget it. Let me have a good night's sleep. Let me not have so many triggers. Let me not have so many visions. Let me not have so many nightmares. That. I don't wish I'd never been there because we did do a lot of good. And we got a lot of bad guys. So no, I don't wish I'd never been there. I'm glad I was there. And I'm glad I served my country. And I was with my guys. And I'm very proud of that. I'm very proud of all of them. I wish I could... Maybe I wish I could forget it for a day. One whole day, one whole night. No, I'm gonna be greedy. One whole week of not remembering any of it. Just 1 week. Oh, and 8 hours sleep. 8 hours sleep with no dreaming. With no dreaming at all.
Am I gonna get blown up? Is my friend gonna get blown up? How is it gonna happen? What am I gonna do if that happens? What happens is that you experience that mostly in the beginning, and then it's amazing how your mind works because you kind of develop a rhythm, and then you kind of just you fall into the groove.
You know, I thought it was going to be a constant fight every day, having contact with the enemy every single day. The sights, smells, the feelings, the ambiance of war was there. It just wasn't there in the concentration that I thought it was going to be.
Late the night of August 9th, 2005, Santos, Judge, and their unit went to the aid of another platoon that had been lured into an ambush. 4 Americans had died. Several others were wounded. The scene was burning chaos when Santos and Judge arrived.
It was horrible. It was actually human body parts in the trees, and you like feel drips on you, and you go and like look, and it's red, so like, and at that point you kind of just, I mean, for me, you didn't just like stand there and kind of think about it. You just, oh man, that's messed up, and then you don't really process it at that point, and so all this is, all this that you're seeing and that you're smelling, it's just, it's amazing how like it didn't stop us. We were able to continue and to do what we had to do. We continued to clear it.
We ran over to the wall, began to scale it, and we thought it was a tire that had got blown into the tree and was burning, because if you've ever heard, rubber burn and drip, it makes that like fizzle, like it was just dripping down. It burnt our hands a little bit, got in the back of our necks, down our shirt. The men that were in that Humvee were in pieces.
This night would forever bond the two men. But in years to come, the experience would affect them in profoundly different ways.
3 weeks after I came home, I met my wife. We dated for a couple of years. This is my wedding album, my wife and I. This is at the church. So me in my uniform about to get married, and he's being my right-hand man. After meeting her, I finished college. Both my brother and I went to Rutgers. That's my brother and I. He decided he wanted to be a priest. I finished out Rutgers. Yeah, no. And I joined the Sheriff's Department in Hudson County. Did that for about a year, and then took the state police test. And then that's where I am today. I'm married and state trooper.
My love.
I grew up in Kearney, New Jersey with my brother, my identical twin brother, David Santos. My parents are from Portugal. They're both from Portugal, so the same little fishing village. And they came over here in the 70s, and this is where we grew up.
He's coming almost every day. The time, when he's not working, he come stay with me, talk to me.
One thing I could definitely say about the way that my brother and I were raised, family's always number one. It's always something that kind of grounds you, keeps you relevant, to each other. My wife hasn't learned how to cook Portuguese style yet.
Yeah, so. And sometimes I cook for the boat.
Everything we did together as a family.
Yeah, I want my baby with me.
Every night we ate dinner together. It didn't matter what we were doing. It'd be 6 o'clock, 6:30, and if my brother and I were playing outside and we weren't back in time, my mother would be screaming the streets of Kearney to make sure that we were home in time for dinner. My brother and I decided to join the military together. I know that the catalyst for that was September 11th. I never really thought about what war was going to be like when we knew we were going to go into war. I prayed a lot, and I told I had a conversation with God, and I told him, this is what I'm gonna do, and kind of help me out along the way.
Confirmed. We got a guy in a vehicle confirmed with an assault rifle.
I think I was mentally prepared. I didn't know it at the time. Looking back, thank God it turned out the way it did.
I don't talk to Brian as much as I'd like to, or as much as I want to. Maybe a few times a year. But I I remember telling him a couple years ago when I went off the deep end in a real bad way what had happened, and told him about a heroin addiction that I had and that I was in treatment for it. And he was flabbergasted. And he said, "I hope you don't mind me asking this, but what drives you to throw that spike in your arm to feel better?" He's like, "Isn't that such a gamble?" And I don't know the answer to that. I don't know how it came to the point where I became, a heroin addict and an alcoholic.
Two soldiers may come back, and one appear to do very well when they return and integrate back to society, and another soldier having the very same experiences may struggle with their symptoms. Why that might be is not well understood. We believe that there are a number of factors that can help. Certainly some of them are individual differences, and certainly having a supportive family, having a supportive society, having a job, having goals in one's life can be very helpful, but it becomes important for them then to manage their symptoms effectively. And sometimes soldiers don't come to the realization that they need help for a number of years until they return.
After returning home from Iraq, starting in November of 2005, my life became a rapid spiral down.
Okay, so elevator, it's right to your right on the hallway when you go down.
Thank you. I quickly became a everyday drinker, blackout drinker. It almost seemed like as soon as my head got to a certain angle, right before I hit the pillow, all I could see and hear were flames. Auditory and tactile hallucinations from moments where I'll feel like soldiers are grabbing at my calves and my ankles as I'm running through the line. I'll feel like a soldier's grabbing my legs when I'm sleeping at night. Just went off the deep end. I was emotionally, spiritually, and physically withdrawn from family, friends, society. I felt like I was a walking carcass. If I tell anyone here exactly how I feel, they want to lock me up. Because do I think about suicide? Fuck yeah, I do. Every day. Almost with every meal. Am I going to act on it? No. And I tell people that, well, I think we should do more screening. No, it's just how it is. In the past several years since I've been home, my mother and I have had a less than adequate relationship. We've grown apart. I isolated and secluded myself from her. She was the first one to tell me, you're not the same. She became so rapidly sick. Just in, the past couple weeks, I don't know how to say goodbye and have that goodbye encompass a heartfelt thank you. Some form of amends. Life wasn't so easy growing up with a single mother. She did everything she could. She helped out with the kids when I was overseas so much. She would always send care packages, always went out of her way. And she was just so proud to have a soldier as a son. You know, I just didn't anticipate as being part of the grieving process for my mother, having my children involved, and I never had a good process with my grandparents and people that I loved and lost over the years. I tried to make losing my mom in the grieving process of losing a grandmother for my children the most beautiful experience as I could as possible for them. Leading them into the room, leading in prayer, holding her hand, just forcing ourselves to say what we could say. Held her hand constantly and just tried to make up for 31 years in 96 hours.
It's kind of strange to try to think about like the little details, you know, trying to think about like how certain things went, but I really don't remember too much, you know. I just remember certain instances, definitely smells. I think I try and like look at things on the positive end, like you know how awesome it was the way that Sean reacted, how good of an example there was of leadership. I don't know if it has damaged me. I almost feel bad like saying that it hasn't, because you know how could it, but I don't know. I mean, I would like to attribute it to like my relationship spiritually, you know, with God. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it has. Who knows where I'm gonna be in a couple years, but I think if I could attribute it to anybody or to anything, I would definitely say it was my family. You know, I came back automatically, you know, hey, if you need to talk to us about anything happened that you want to talk to us about, almost like a counseling system, you know, something that you would definitely see on outgoing briefings and stuff. Like the Army was good with that, but it's hard to talk to a stranger sometimes. And my parents, you know, my family knew that, and always being that support system. I feel very fortunate because, you know, and like you said, sometimes, like, you know, it's kind of crappy feeling sometimes because you feel wondering what's going on in someone else's life and why is it, you know, what are you doing that they aren't, or they're doing that you aren't, you know. I feel very fortunate. I feel very blessed.
We'll see you soon. Love you. Brandon, Jordan, be safe. Take care of each other. Love you guys. See you guys when I get home. Bye.
In early March 2003, Saddam Hussein was still the dictator of Iraq, but Allied forces were massing in Kuwait for what would be the bloody drive to Baghdad.
Greetings from Camp Pennsylvania, Kuwait.
On March 19th, the day of the invasion, my son was there. I didn't know where he was until I saw his picture in the Providence Journal standing on the berm on the Kuwaiti-Iraqi border.
The picture of me on the berm, without a doubt, the proudest moment of my life. I know the history of our military. When those infantry guys rolled by us and they saw that flag, that represented all of us, from the past to that day.
It took me 1 month to find out Derek was okay. And I was never so proud, but yet so scared to death. Who was Derek? Derek was sports. Played baseball, played hockey, played football, was in the Cub Scouts. He was a class clown.
I was a fun guy. I was the go-to guy for funny. I was the guy that could bring people together. I was the leader.
And now?
I'm a veteran.
When he came home, you saw the 100-yard glare. I was scared. I knew right there and then we were in trouble.
Technically, I'm still me. But now I'm just a pissed off hermit with the shakes.
He's a soldier. He's always been a soldier at heart.
Derek Pelletier grew up in Fall River, Massachusetts, and became a Marine. He was a member of a highly honored platoon that spearheaded the assault on Baghdad.
My platoon sergeant, Sergeant First Class Paul Ray Smith, was awarded the first Medal of Honor out of Iraq for the fighting that we did at what was then Saddam International Airport on 4th of April 2003. I was invited by the Smith family to attend the White House ceremony where his son accepted the Medal of Honor on his father's behalf. I was his wife's escort.
Their battle at the main airport was one of the most brutal of the invasion. For his part in the airport battle, Pelletier would earn the first of his 2 Bronze Stars.
Sergeant Smith was killed April 4th at the airport, and then Sergeant Hollinshead and Maya were killed on the 7th as we pushed north. The airport, it was huge. It was a big fight, numbers-wise and equipment-wise. But what happened with Sergeant Hollinshead, for me on a personal level, that's the biggest fight of them all. And I'm kind of still fight that I'm fighting today. I dream about Sergeant Hollinshead that day.
Pelletier kept a diary of his early days in Iraq. He began by writing, "There comes a time in a man's life when he questions his own mortality. Mine came in the desert of the Middle East. This is Operation Iraqi Freedom."
He was now platoon sergeant. After Sergeant Smith was killed, they called up one of our aces, which is a bulldozer type vehicle, to start smashing holes in walls that were around the neighborhood. We were in a very densely urban area now. And Sergeant Hollinshead went to guide the bulldozer up. I'm looking, there was a 4-story building on the other side of the wall there, very close to us and him. I was watching the windows, didn't see anything. There was not even a hint that there was anybody over there. And he walked towards the middle of the opening and stood there in the open and looked. And he saw what was about to happen to him. He jumped up on his tippy toes, and he made a grab for his rifle, and he twisted his body halfway, and he was jumping at the same time, and he looked dead at me. I mean, looked at me square in the eyes. And then everything just shot at him. And all of a sudden there were people in the windows in that building, There were people coming out of the ground where we were on our side of the wall. There were people coming out of the ground like 10 feet away from him that he had been walking over that he didn't see, and none of us saw. And they were all in dug-in positions. They had dug holes in the ground and stuck Connexes in there so that it could hide. And this all happened like that. And when they all shot at him, he just poof. Just went in a big red mist and hit the ground. They tried grabbing him. When I saw that, I don't know, I think it was rage. They were trying to take his body. He was still down there. I was going to get Sergeant Hollinshead. Sergeant Keller and the first sergeant were all of a sudden right beside me. They were going with me. There were only 3 of us. The whole run towards him, we had to run at the people that were shooting at us. At the building they were shooting at us. By that time, all hell was breaking loose now because all them Bradleys and tanks, they were now all off the highway and shooting into the gate that Sergeant Hollinshead had them open up. And everything on the other side of that gate was shooting out towards the Bradleys and the tanks. And Sergeant Hollinshead was right in the middle. I ran right out there, right at him, just turned off everything that was happening on the side of me, and he was on his stomach. And we have handles on the back of our flak vest. And I yanked him to try and get him on his back. And when I yanked him, he flipped over, and again he looked right at me. And his face was huge from all the trauma that he had. His magazines were cut in half. His plate was all shattered from his body armor. And Sergeant Keller made it to me at that point, and he started helping me drag Sergeant Hollinshead away. And his legs were about off. So we had to hold one part and the other part, keep them together. And all the bullets and the tanks firing on the side of us, it felt like my brain was getting mushed from the compression. I made it to a fighting position that some infantry guys were in with an enemy EPW. But when I got in the hole, I broke down. I snapped. Everything that I had just saw hit me. And I know I was crying, and I know I was very angry. And that EPW was on the side of me, and he started laughing at me. And when he laughed at me, I'm not sure if I could ever bring up that type of anger or rage ever again. But when he laughed at me, the way I was looking at it is he was responsible for this. He knew all them guys were there. And now here he is, laughing at his success and laughing that I'm in tears in that foxhole with him. And I could hear my lieutenant he kept saying my name, and another guy, Pace, he kept saying my name, and they were yelling at me, because I had the pistol pointed right at EPW, and I'm guessing they thought I was going to shoot the guy, and I was going to shoot the guy. I was very close to shooting that guy, but I didn't. That's the demons that I fight at night, is that one.
He's home. And that's all I can ask for.
As far as the symptoms go, it's embarrassing for me.
He tries. Going into a mall, he has a hard time. But he tries. He goes. Grocery shopping's difficult. But he goes.
I spent the past 5 years in this little area. My voice gets very hard to understand me at times. I shake a lot, and naturally people ask about that stuff. And then when I mentioned Iraq,
Leo, hello, sweetheart. Hi. Oh my gosh, she's beautiful.
I think he works really hard. He comes here, he goes and sees his psychiatrist, and he takes medications. He makes sure that he's actively involved with his grandparents' lives and his mom's. That's his world.
I want what's best for Derek. He doesn't have to worry about me. I'm fine. I want what's best for Derek. I just want him, I want my son back. I just want him, I know you're right there. But you understand what I mean.
Why are you crying?
Why am I crying? It's just very emotional, and everything comes back, and it's hard to see your son hurting, because you don't want to see them hurting. And yeah, you can fix a broken arm or a broken leg, or if they're sick, you can make them better. My family and I feel helpless. You feel helpless as a parent. You can't fix them.
I'm an only child. You know, and she had her only son go off the war to begin with, and had to deal with that. And, you know, I actually sat her down in a restaurant before I left for Iraq. And it explained to her what my life insurance plan was and where I wanted to be buried if I was killed. I just can't put myself in her shoes for that alone. And then I have to have her son come back and see me going through this stuff, and she was always pushing me to get help, telling me I needed help, and I was just a typical a-hole drunk again. You know? I was mean to her. When I have my bad days, she's always there. She's one of the only ones I really talk to, so if I'm having my bouts of anger, she gets it. She don't deserve that. And I hate that it happens that way. My family loves me a great deal, and some guys don't have that at all.
I gotta go.
She's a strong, strong woman to deal with this stuff.
All right. Bye, Cleo.
Bye, Jamie.
Bye, Cleo. Bye.
I tell her I love her every night. I talk to her every day. You know, call me a mama's boy, I really don't care. I'll be right back, okay?
Derek, I've seen Derek for several years now. When I talk to him, it seems that he came back from combat yesterday. He has been back for almost 8 years now. He was part of initial invasion to Iraq. That was one of the most violent period in the war. It's a time of chaos, time of violence, and that sense that stays with you, unfortunately.
A lot of the stuff that should have stayed out there came back, and the stuff that should have came back stayed out there.
What stayed there that you miss?
Me. I can tell you where exactly to find me though out there. Right where Sergeant Alonzo was killed. If I could go back there and just stand in that spot and walk myself through it, for whatever reason, I think that would help me.
You want some resolution, you want some answers, and there are no answers.
Good.
Oh yeah, I went and looked at homes.
Oh, you did?
Yes.
He did.
That's fantastic. He's coming out of a bad period.
Pelletier shared his experience in several interviews in 2011. Revisiting the horrors he witnessed took a toll on him. It brought fresh nightmares and depression. It hurt. But he chose to go public with his story. He had an important purpose.
Derek, why tell your story now?
I think it has a lot to do with what happened in the VA parking lot. A Vietnam veteran, Mr. Petrucci, he shot himself when I was in the parking lot. He was about 10 feet away from me. And I ran up to him. I checked his pulse and I held his hand. You know, for somebody to do that, they had to feel very alone and feel like nobody was listening and they had no voice themselves. So if I can be part of his voice, then this is what I need to do. All he had to do was turn around and say, I need help. I would have helped him. The other two men that were there would have helped him. Because things have changed. Things have changed a great deal. People care about our veterans now. And they need to know that.